Well, I'm really glad that I was muted because I said something wrong. So, hello everybody and welcome to season 2, episode 23, I believe, of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm your host, Clare Rowley, inventor of the Creative Feet line of sewing machine products. And today I'm going to show you how to make a bathing suit cover. And hello, Tina, Cynthia, Better Days, also known as Amy. And I think that's all that's on here so far. Welcome to this Thursday afternoon where we are having some rain, a little bit of weather. Our monsoonal flow kind of feels like it's starting to kick in, and it's always really exciting when that happens. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you what I said because I honestly can't remember, but I was like embarrassed, and I'm so glad that my mic was off so that you guys didn't hear me. So what I have here is a type of fabric called acid washed silk. And you don't have to use fabric this expensive for this. It's really good just for any type of really sheer material where you'd normally have a real challenge sewing through something that you can see through so easily. Have any of you ever worked with fabric like this and wished you never did it? Again, yes, kind of clothing. It's live. I know you guys want clothes too. So know that I'm thinking about it, but every week, this is our live show. I'll probably do clothes in a regular filmed episode. So I have this edging already on the fabric and I'm going to cut it off so that I can do a couple different methods with you for this. Have any of you ever done smocking before, or are you familiar with what smocking is? Smocking is done sometimes with a machine called a smocking machine, and it's done a lot in heirloom sewing, and sometimes the smocking stretches and sometimes it doesn't. You've probably seen smocking, or maybe you're my age and we had maxi dresses that we used to just pull up and the top portion was stretchy and it was rows of elasticity in the fabric. And this is, how it was basically done is in this manner, sewing over rows of elastic, and that makes it sheer up really pretty like that. So this is a process that we can do using my Sequins and ribbon foot. It's one of the techniques in the Creative Feet technical guide and workbook. And if you're not familiar with that, turn this thing off. The Creative Feet technical guide and workbook is a binder that you can construct, and I will kind of show you the inside of this. So back here we have the Sequins and ribbon foot section of our workbook, and it's designed for you to create little samples and glue them into the book, or you can get page protectors and insert your little samples inside of it. This would be the couching and elastic. So you can see you can work with even 1 inch, 1.5 inch elastic with our Sequins and ribbon foot, even though the guide on the foot is not that wide. In fact, even with the smallest of the guides, you can still sew the biggest of the elastics because it's the base of the foot that makes it perform so well for sewing elastic. Hi, Cynthia. Long time ago in 4-H in the 70s. Oh, wow. Long time. I have been having issues with using the correct words today. Hopefully that will improve. I think I made my coffee too strong this morning. So you can see these are elastics, all different sizes, all with the same foot. And I'm getting to the smocking area, I think. Best way to find out where you should go is to go to the table of contents. And you can see this book is full of different techniques that we can do And one of my techniques was constantly being stolen out of the book. And when I take it to the show, and I think it's gone in this one as well. So I'm going to be doing that. Go to the table of contents. This is a beat up book from shows. And that's how young I was when I published it. A long time ago. So this is the sequins and ribbon, and we go down and we look for smocking. Couching, gathering with thread. Who wrote this book? So basically, I'm going to show you. Whoops. So we don't need to use the book because I wrote it. So, but I think that it would be good to show you more than one method of hemming this type of fabric. Unless you guys would like me just to show you one. And I thought I'd play around with the quilt highlights ribbon that is officially on creativefeet.com. We got it all finished late last night. So I thought I would show you. I forgot to tell everyone in the school that I was going live today. So if you go to products and then supplies and notions, you will see that we have the textile color inks on our site as well. And I just absolutely love what my son did by having the color what it looks like when it's dry splattered in front of the bottles, so that you can really put that garment up to the screen and make sure that the color is matching according to what you want. So you can order this ink, and I'm hoping that the other inks are on their way to us, as they were not able to fill our order. So I'll go back and you'll see the metallic braid right here. So it's a ribbon, but it's braided. So it's braided ribbon. And this is just the metallic, and there's different ones. So we'll be adding all of them as time allows, because it does take a while to do this type of thing. And you were watching, if you were watching this one, you can see how neat it is, how it spreads out and becomes bigger. Hard for you to tell right now, but that's 1/4 inch wide, and it starts out 1/8 inch wide. So just sewing a straight stitch smushes it and spreads it out and makes it bigger. So I think that it may be really interesting to see exactly what I can do. What am I doing? Why isn't that working? Oh, I know why. This happened to me last week. Still learning something really cool that I have to use on here. But I'm thinking this would be really pretty to have along the edge. And I haven't tried it yet on this fabric, so we'll be doing it together. As so many times I do things with you for the first time. So this was originally a really long sarong, and I chopped off the top because I just I wanted to leave this so I could still show it to you and use it in the photography, and it was too long anyway. So this is what I'll be doing alternate hemming on, and this will be the new sarong for me, which is more my length. I'll be going down to my knee. The other one I was tripping on it. You don't want to know how much this fabric costs. Let's just say it's our little secret. And I had it for years where I just couldn't bear to use it because I spent so much on it. But I've always felt like it was the best use for it would be a sarong or something like a scarf. So I'm going to cut off this other edging that I had on here and didn't really like. I was wishing for something lighter weight but sparkly, and this was before I found out about, or before they came out with the quilt highlights, not to be confused with something you can only use for quilting, because you'll be able to use this for just about anything. One of the things I'm going to show you is how to sew over fishing line. And if we have time, I'll play around with a little bit of how to sew wire edge ribbon. And these are things that you'll see inside of the workbook, different techniques that you can do. And sometimes you don't necessarily want to make a wire edge ribbon, but maybe you want a bow that stays upright or has nice body and never goes away. So there's two ways you can do that. One is if the fabric is the right kind of fabric, you can use fishing line, and another is to use wire and sew over the wire and leave the wire in there. Want to make sure you get a wire that won't rust if you're going to use it in a garment that's going to get wet. Oh, I'm just going to chop that off. There we go. I should have pressed, I steamed it because this is, you can melt this easily with your iron. Don't worry, I won't waste this. So if we're going to use fishing line, we don't want a 90-degree angle to turn. Oh, I'm so happy I did this the right way. So I was hoping for a wider piece that was shorter, and I had it all plotted out before I went live, but wasn't sure I had done it right. So it's always nice when you do things the right way. Otherwise I would have had to sew a seam. So basically how big you make it is really how much of it do you want it to gather when it's actually on you, and where do you want it to sit on your body. And the top edge is going to be gathered and there'll be a seam. So I want it to slit though on the side. So probably go about halfway. Have it not slit all the way. I don't know. Should I have it slit all the way, you guys? You vote. You like it when you learn with me? Can't hide it, can't sneak, can't go behind your eyes and figure it out without you. It's not cut straight, so I must cut it straight. It's very awkward to work with, and I don't like using pins, but this would probably be a fabric that I might get the pins out for. All right. I want to get this edge together. And fabric has with the grain and against the grain, and so this edge right here, these, because they're the selvage, they do not stretch. So you can use it however you like. However, this would be the best side to have as your seam allowance, because you don't have to worry about it stretching as you sew those two fabrics together. Now we have to deal with the cross grain for the hem, which has stretch to it. So you can see how it expands, and that's problematic. That's where your sewing machine will run into trouble. Hopefully it'll all fit after I'm done cutting it. Let's see here. So sewing over fishing line is something that I talk about, and you can do that in bridal. It is something that I came up with in the 90s, and we did it on a serger. And then when I released the Satinedge Foot, I thought I might be able to use that same technique with the Satinedge Foot, and sure can. So pretty much anything you can do with a serger except for cutting while you're sewing can be done with the Satinedge Foot. So we got, this is definitely straight because it's selvage. And then I cut that. So now we have the hem, and I want to have a scalloped or curved junction, or where the fabrics come together. Here we go. This is going to be the smocked edge because I did not cut it the right way for the seam, but that's okay because I want to show you how to handle the fabric. I really am just like not succeeding at cutting this straight with cheating. I have a lot of static electricity in the air. So cutting this fabric straight, folding it did not work. And I want to get this seam allowance. So we'll sew to about there. And then the rest will be cut on a curve. And you can use a dinner plate and have the dinner plate come like that too. I had some paper plates in here. I thought I could show you with a plate. Where did I put them? I don't know. Must have put them away. Let's get this one out of the way. This is the round elastic that I've chosen to use. I'm going to use black because I have a black bathing suit, so I think it will look good that way. So I want it to curve a little bit, and that way I can use the fishing line and it will curl or curve around. And I'm just going to wing it here. We want this to cut over because we want to sew the seam and then we want it to come out. So cut over. And this is not me trying to design a pattern for you, just kind of to really just give you techniques on how to perhaps create something like this for yourself using a pattern. So I'm going to sew from this end to that end using a seam allowance that works really well for fabrics like this, which would be a flat construction. There we go. And this is challenging to know which side is right or wrong unless you have something that like this material, which is velvet. So it's acid washed velvet is what I meant to say. I think it's silk and velvet. So let's see here. You guys are chatty today. I'll have to peek and see what you guys were talking about. I really didn't know what I was going to do. I was praying on it. I was like, what should I do today? And then I said, well, what do I want? And I want a new bathing suit cover. I got a new bathing suit and now I want a new cover for it. This is a really sheer fabric, so working with really fine threads is advisable. And not only that, also working with a very thin needle. If your needle is thicker than this material, well, you'll get a bigger hole and you're more likely to skip stitches. In case you didn't know that is a cause for skipping stitches. So I'll look through my needles and see if I have a 68, and that means I am not going to be able to use my needle threader. This is a very, very sheer or very narrow in diameter needle. An alternative to this would be the stretch 7511. And I'll explain why. If you can't find a smaller needle, or if you want to be able to use a thicker thread on a sheer material and you don't want to create a really large hole from the needle because you want the thread to show, but you don't want to also have a gigantic hole, a 9 is also appropriate for this. Let's see. And I may not have any stretch needles in here because I may have used them all, but I'll explain why a stretch needle would be allowed, and all the way, here it is, up to 7511. It is one of my favorite needles. And this is why. In the design of this needle, what they were going for when it was invented years and years and years ago, they were trying to prevent stretch fabrics from causing the thread to grab onto the back of the needle. So what they did was they made a needle that is flatter. So it's very flat. And that way, even though it's wider and has the channel large enough to handle a thicker thread, not any thicker than 40 weight, but still, because it's flatter, it creates a smaller hole. And also, they made the scarf in the back deeper and longer. So when the hook comes around, if the stretch fabric squeezes onto the needle as the needle is going down, it doesn't make it so that the hook can't get behind the thread. So there's a little scientific perspective of what is so unique about, and you'll see me recommend a lot through my book, the Stretch Universal Needle, or the Stretch Stretch Needle. And for any of you that have an old Singer Slant-O-Matic, you cannot use the Stretch Needle by Schmetz. You have to use the one made by Singer. All other Singers are good to go with using the Schmetz version. I'm tongue-tied today. Hello. All the way from India. All right, so now I've decided I'm going to use a 9 needle because I'm going to go over fishing line, and I feel a little bit more secure in doing so. And I'm going to use the Invisifill thread, but I'm also going to show you what it would look like with a little bit heavier thread if we have time. Let's see here. Do any of you have any questions so far? And I'm changing to my 100 weight Invisifill, not to be confused with Invisible thread. And I really think that the yellow would be nice complementary, but the yellow I have is not Invisifill. Oh, there it is. I thought about making a wedding veil, but I didn't recall you guys getting excited about wedding veils. Hello. I wish I could read better. Let's see here. Maybe I can read the chat if I view it here. Ilse, is that how you say it? From Chile. Welcome. And I can't read. Is it mode? Well, everybody's welcoming you. This is a good group of girls and guys. I'm going to wind a bobbin of this because you absolutely want to match your needle and bobbin thread whenever your stitch is going to go all around the edge so that the back looks just as good as the top. I know I have empty bobbins. I have a whole bunch right in here. And yep, I do. I have a bobbin already wound of it. It's one of my my favorite color. Open. There you go. So it's very nice when you have a bobbin already wound, which is partly why I really like our pre-wound bobbins that you can get. But this is the 100 weight. And it took me a considerable amount of time to wind that full of a bobbin from this thread because 100 weight is 40% thinner than working with a 40 weight thread. And a 40 weight thread will hold 40% less thread on a bobbin. So if you have a lot of sewing to do and you don't want to change out your bobbin, the Invisifill is the best size. 80 weight is just a little bit thinner than the 100 weight, or thicker. And that is what these are. And we haven't had any sewing machines, computer sensors not be able to read or see that this thread is in your bobbin. So it's also, I haven't found a thread that I use on the top that doesn't work beautifully with the deco bobs that you'll find at creativefeet.com. It's always good. It's always exciting when I have a bobbin already wound. I don't know if you feel that way, but I do. I'm like, woohoo, I don't have to wind bobbin. I can get right to the sewing. Remember, if you're using a needle that is smaller than a 12, you should not use your needle threader on your sewing machine. And I'm using my thread dispenser, which we're waiting on one part to come in, and looks like it'll come in tomorrow. And then we'll be able to restock or have the thread dispensers available for purchase at creativefeet.com. In case you didn't know that we had been sold out. I almost used the needle threader. So bear with me as I get out my glasses, which, hey, I knew right where they were because I'm organized. If you were the type that cuts your thread and then licks it, you should lick it first and then cut. And that is because after you cut it and then you lick it, sometimes you pull little threads out on the... There we go. Also, one way to help to make the thread stronger is to grab it like this as you're going towards your needle eye. And that keeps it from bending as you go through. And then you'll notice that this machine has a white adapter, but you can also put white paper or anything white behind the eye of the needle to see it better. So I'm going to sew my seam first. Here it is. Right sides together. So part of the problem with sewing big things on a live program is without cameramen to turn on and off cameras, it's harder for me to get all of what I want in each scene. Now, this is definitely a time to use the liquid-based glue. You can pin if you like, but one of the benefits of using the liquid-based, excuse me, got a little fuzz, there is water-soluble stabilizer in a bottle. That's what this is. And it is going to bond these two fabrics together. And as we do this, we're also stabilizing the two fabrics, or joining them together and preventing them from stretching as they sew together. Depending on what kind of seam allowance you'd like, if you want to overcast it, you could do that as well. Now, you may think, why isn't she just using a serger? And I do own a serger. I just invented this foot that lets you do things without a serger. And so if you have a serger and you want to sew something like this together with it, by all means do. I'm not criticizing or trying to get you not to use those machines. But sometimes you just don't have the color thread that you want in 3 spools. So this allows us just to use our single thread and bobbin. This is really sheer fabric, so this is crazy to sew live. There we go. Yeah, the liquid-based thread is your best friend, especially on fabric like this. You can see it just wants to move in all different directions. Just little dots. And then you'll notice, if you're not familiar with it, that I slide my finger across, and that's to kind of even it out. And when I'm doing that, I'm not pushing it into the fiber. We want to actually get it to be between the two layers of fabric. It's a good idea to have a wet washcloth, so your fingers, if they get a little on it, you can just wipe it off. It is water soluble, by the way. When I had my store, I had a group of ladies that came in to make sarongs from India, and they visited our store. So this kind of reminds me of that, since we have you from India. Know that I have a variety of different techniques that I created for sarongs when they were visiting. In my sequins and ribbon foot, they were thrilled with the ability to sew sequins on with a string instead of individually. This is the Satinedge foot. It is attached now to the sewing machine. However, when you purchase it, if you don't already own it, it comes packaged similar to this. This is our pearls and piping foot package. But it comes with adapters. Let me open it. And these adapters make it accommodate different machines. So if you have a universal snap-on foot machine, which usually has a bar that's 7 millimeters wide, then any one of our adapters will snap right onto it. If your machine has a 9 millimeter wide snap-on bar, then you'll need to remove your adapter and replace it with one of ours instead. And then our adapters are just snap on and off. You can't break these, by the way. You can just go ahead and snap it on and off all day long. It just keeps going on and off. And once you have this foot, if you don't already have it, I'm sure people in the chat can corroborate that once you have this foot, you pretty much barely ever have to switch it with another foot, right? It's just, it does so many different things in addition to helping you guide accurately. And each foot comes with a little booklet with instructions in it. The big book that I showed earlier is where, well, incorporating in many of the different techniques that I've invented. So not only did I invent feet, but I invented the techniques as well. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead at first and sew a straight stitch. And I want it to be just about a 1/4 inch in. And you can accurately measure the distance that guide is by using a measuring tape. So you have your 1/4 inch distance on the measuring tape. You use a left needle position. Take and place the measuring tape beneath the presser foot and lower the needle down so that it comes down on one of these lines. And then inside of the foot is this little wire. And as I turn the nut, you'll see that the wire moves. So wherever you move the wire in the foot, I don't have to, oh, that's my glasses. My glasses always make it look like something's wrong on that camera. So that wire right there is what's being moved by turning this nut, because it's connected to this white guide. And then it has this deep channel beneath, so it allows fishing line and wires and different trims to be added as you sew a seam allowance. You can use this for straight stitching, zigzag stitching, and your overcast stitches or overlock stitches that came with your sewing machine. And I want to do a straight stitch first, even though I'm probably going to do something else after. It's acid wash, velvet, and it's silk. So I'll see if you can get a really good look at this. So you can see the back side, that's orange, but if you look at the top, you can see it's kind of like a It is a silk, a really shiny silk, but some of it kind of feels like velvet. So this is a very, very low pile of velvet. And it's just stunning. And if I could tell you where to get it, I would. But I bought it in one of the garment districts in one of the states in the United States. I think it was in the garment district in Florida, but I can't remember. So I'm using a straight stitch right now, and it's going to help me guide. I'm also going to reduce my thread tension, which is a good rule of thumb on a thin material. And also to not use a long stitch length. A shorter stitch length will reduce the amount of puckering or gathering. And this is me going against the grain. This is the stretchy side of the fabric, but the glue, because it sat long enough to dry, is actually stabilizing these two fabrics and making it not pucker as we sew, or to not expand as I sew. Liquid water-soluble stabilizer. Yep. Got my speed control reduced. I must have been quilting last. There's nothing wrong with not sewing quickly, though. There we go. So lighter tension. And here I'm coming up on where I was going to have it start to curve or taper. But that's definitely not a good seam allowance because this can fray. So now I'm going to take and put the Satinedge foot and move the wire over, and we're going to use a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to overcast. And if I overcast using a wider than you would normally think width on this, I'm hoping that the fabric itself will start to curl or roll under. And that's too narrow. Go into a 4.5 zigzag width. And I bring my needle down in the right swing of the zigzag stitch and then move the wire over to the needle. So the ability for this guide to adjust is what makes it capable of doing over 27 different things. And all you need is a zigzag stitch. And I can see that my needle is deflecting. In other words, it's bending. And that means I brought it too close to the needle. So I got to go back just a smidge. You want it to be touching the needle, but not bending the needle. And I want to take it, let's see. Okay, so 4.5 millimeter wide zigzag. And it's kind of rolling it. I'm going to go a little shorter. Oops, wrong thing. A little shorter on the stitch length. Another option for working with fabrics like this is my basting tape. And this is the basting tape, and it is our water-soluble stabilizer that has a sticky side to it. And this is also water-soluble. So the sticky part and the non-sticky part is a water-soluble product. And if you're going to do that, instead of trying to tape it to the edge of the fabric accurately like that, you would draw a line of whatever design you want to actually sew, and then tape over that line and then cut. And then you wouldn't have any of that curving when you go to cut your fabric out. It'll be nice and straight. So the struggle that you saw me go through was me showing you how not to do it. So if you tape first, then you cut, well, then you have a perfect edge. And I will do a little bit of that with our scraps if you don't let me forget. The stick and rinse tape is in stock, and you'll find it under the Dolphin stabilizer at creativefeet.com. The name is Stick and Rinse, but it is the tape width of the roll sizes. And know that it's all we have left right now, as we are having this is the 24th of June in the year 2020. just to be sure if you're watching this that you know that that is when we had a shortage or a delay in getting our stick and rinse stabilizer manufactured due to COVID. So back to the fun. There we go. And know that we're on it. This is something that is very frustrating because I like to use our stick and rinse stabilizer for a lot of things. And I've been hiding it or not really using it. The tension is 4 and I'm helping it through a little bit, which is something I don't always do. I already sewed the straight stitch, which kind of locks the fabric so it won't expand. And I'm holding the seam allowance as I pull gently with the machine. And I'm holding the stitch as well toward the front. And I'm doing that because I'm trying to get the fabric to roll a little bit as we create this overcast. And even if the zigzag stitch, because the stitch is so short, even if the zigzag stitch actually goes past the straight stitch, you won't be able to tell from the right side because the stitch length is so short. But you can see how nice and dainty that seam is. And you don't want a really big seam. It is 2021. Didn't I say 2021? It's the 24th. It's June 24th, 2021. What did I say? I need an editor today, but I need you to edit before the words come out. So this hem's going to be a lot easier than I expected. This is the shearing part. And this is the hem. So it's going to be pretty. I'm going to play around with the one that I cut up before, which isn't a bad idea. Like you have little scraps like this to try it out before you actually use it to know what you're going to get. And even these scraps are so lovely. Now the fishing line technique I created for bridle, and we did it with the fabric cut on the bias. And the fishing line weight that I use is 20-pound fishing line. I was looking all over for this. I wanted to show this to you guys several times. And finally it popped up in a place I don't normally place it. So I just got to find the end. Where's the outer end? It's big stuff. Should be easy to find. Come on, where are you? I was thinking about that. This reminds me of a weed whacker. I think what's going on here is it's so old that it cracked. I'll let you see what I'm talking about. This is the same 20-pound fishing line that I probably bought over 20 years ago. I gotta find the end. If there was somebody here to help me find the end, that'd be so great. You guys got any idea where it is? I'm gonna take a sip of my lunch. Maybe my brain will kick in. I'm gonna mute myself for a second. $330 yards on here. And the temptation is always to just cut where you got something. And don't ever do that. I need to go to the store and buy more. The end is probably really close to the edge here. Well, if you're going to cut, because you can't find the end, at least cut close to the top so that you're more likely to be near the end. But just don't ever do it, okay? This is one of those times when do what I say, not what I do. Definitely don't use your fabric cutting scissors when cutting this. See if it's going to be long enough. Definitely long enough. It's kind of like invisible thread. In fact, it is the nylon version. And this is the fluorescent fishing line, which I believe it makes it like glow a little bit in the water. And what we're going to do is sew on the edge of the fabric. And this is single layer. And take the fishing line and we're just going to slide it beneath the part of the foot that goes across on the top. And just kind of take it in and have it come out the back end. You definitely want to use a pair of glasses if you need them. It's poking. There we go. Get back there. It's good to have a good length out from the other end in case you get to where you're holding that and it causes it to slip out. And now I'm going to reduce the width, take it to 3.5, and I'm shortening my stitch length. Now, no matter how short I make the stitch length, this thread is only 100 weight. It's never going to really pop and show up. You have a 9mm machine, so there's two meanings behind that. Some people have a 9mm wide zigzag stitch, and so they can't use feet that have a narrower opening inside because the space does not accommodate for a 9mm wide width. And if you have a 9mm wide machine, it's computerized, and it won't let you use a foot that it won't let you use that width of stitch on any foot that doesn't have a sensor on it. So you're good to go on that. The other reference to 9mm machines is a 9mm bar on the snap-on bar. And we give you adapters that you switch out. This is our educational special, which includes the book and the video. This is the USB version or flash drive version. And inside of this, you get all three of the creative feet, and you get adapters. And this adapter is a 7mm wide snap-on. So you would take your machine snap-on adapter off and snap ours on. Well, it takes two hands. Go ahead and put that on. And now you can slide that up and underneath and use it on your 9mm wide machine. So you can do it. I have, when Janome came out with their Horizon model and they had the 9mm wide width, they were so concerned that our feet wouldn't fit. And I say that because it shows we're just one of the busiest booths in the show. People really want to be able to utilize our product on their machine. So we've always accommodated them. And you would use the B adapter if you have that machine, the brother machine. On the side of the adapter, there are letters, and you can also set this up right next to your machine's foot and with the shank, and you'll see that it lines up perfectly with your 9mm machine. So Robin, I hope that it turns your frown upside down and makes it into a smile, because I've used them on all of the machines that reference the 9mm, no matter what a dealer might say to you. Here we go. And is this Robin from the Bay Area, or where that show is in Pacific International, Robin? So I have the microphone in my way and I'm trying to see. I want to bring the guide over to the needle. Are you guys missing the shows? Boy, I need those glasses. Where are you? Here we go. Once it's in the stitch, then you don't have to worry about it. And we want it to, just got to make sure that the wire is to the right of the needle. I mean, to the left of the needle, and it's not. Sorry, I hate getting my head in the way. I think I might be doing it to the wrong swing of the needle. Let's see. Nope. Left swing on the fabric, right swing off the fabric, and the wire is to the left of the needle. So this prevents the fabric from having issues that you normally would have. The fishing line acts as a stabilizer. We want the fabric to roll, and that therefore we're getting a hem, but we're not using a serger. The stitch is too short. And I was grabbing it. Grabbing it. I sounded like Elmer Fudd for a second there. Do not pull. Let the machine take it. So we're going to go longer. There we go. And it really depends on the fabric. So it's kind of unnerving because you can't see the fishing line. And it is a good idea to have the fishing line go to the right of your machine. So kind of set it over there, and it encourages it to stay along the side or the edge of the actual guide on the foot. So try not to hold on to the fishing line. You want it to just be taken in by the foot and guiding that instead. Keeping your fabric up against the side of the foot. If the fishing line drops beneath the fabric for a period of time, it doesn't matter. It goes on top of the fabric, it doesn't matter. And then what you see here is this tiny, tiny little hem that you're getting. You could use invisible thread as well if you don't want any stitching to show. Now that it's set, I'm getting a really nice hem and I'm happy with that. See how tiny that is? This is like, see if I can put it up to a measuring tape so you can see how small it is. I think it'd be smaller than a serger would normally achieve, as the wire on my foot is narrower than the pin on the throat plate of a serger. So now if you stretch this on bridle and you've done it across the bias, which I intentionally did just now, you get this beautiful wavy lettuce edge kind of look. And if the fabric is really long, it becomes this really beautiful flowing look. Now, if you remove the fishing line and you pull it out, what you will be left with is a completely lightweight, ultra fine hem that doesn't pucker, because the puckering occurs when you sew. And then once you remove it, if you don't stretch it out of shape first, then it's just this gentle little, tiny little rolled hem. Isn't that nice? So this is ideal for scarves because it has no extra weight. But I wanted to play around also with the quilt highlights. And this is a braid or braided ribbon. What did Amy say? Denver is having theirs in July. I won't be there because I am not doing any shows in 2021. But you guys let me know how it goes. Let's see. I managed to tie a knot. Any questions from anyone? Here we go. So just to help you, we're going to do more photographs for our website to help you see what the size of this ribbon is, because it's so fine. So it's slightly smaller than 1/8 of an inch in width. Now if I use a zigzag stitch and stitch across that, it will stay that width. But if I use a straight stitch, then it spreads out and becomes, see how much bigger that is. So it transforms into bigger than 1/8 of an inch. So is that 3/16? So when we talk about it transforming to a different appearance based on the stitch that you use, that's what I'm referring to. When you sew across it and you hold it within a boundary, then it stays and looks like it does when you just look at it off the roll. But using a straight stitch down the center, it transforms it. And you can use a different color thread in the center, as I did with this design, because I used a yellow, so it made it, you know, match better. Red fuzzy. So I'm switching to the sequins and ribbon foot for this next technique. I'm going to take a sip really quick, you guys. Hold on one second. I'm going to mute myself so you don't have to hear me swallow. All right. Here we go. So the sequins and ribbon foot has different size guides. When you purchase the foot itself, it comes with 1/4 inch guide attached. We have had people buy 3 sets so they could have one of each foot already with the guide on. It's just really not that difficult to take this off and replace it with another guide. Where's that 3/8 inch one? Well, I can't find the 3/8 inch guide. It's included in the specials. You get all 3 of the different size guides inside here. We got 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, and 3/8 inch. And the way that they come off is just like this. You just keep turning the nut towards you until the guide falls off of the foot, and you can spin it around. This is how my assemblers do it quickly. And then if you drop it, the nut stays inside that guide. So you just pull this out and then grab the next size guide, place the nut back in between that little slot, and then it stays in place as you bring the screw to that, and then you just kind of push toward it and then start to turn it. And you can also flip it like this to do it quickly. I am using the 1/8 inch accessory guide. And it has 2 openings in the foot. This is ribbon, so I'm going to put it in the ribbon size guide. When you go to put it in there, it doesn't want to go through. So we take thread. So just a piece of thread, and I generally have pieces of thread laying on my table all the time, but cleaned up the table before I started. And you just take the ribbon and lay it across your thread as it lays there. This is the official couching foot, and it's been around since 1989. If you're not aware that it's that old, our feet are in their 32nd year after release to the world, but I created them even before that, as it took me a while to evolve. You can see how it just goes right in now, and now that ribbon is surrounded all the way around so that it can't escape the foot, eliminating us from having to guide it. And my suspicion is that I'll be able to sew this onto the fabric, and the ribbon will actually keep the fabric from tunneling. But I haven't tried it yet, so we're doing this together. That's the wrong side. We want the right side up. Now, in order for this not to cause puckering, we need to actually attach it to the fabric, and I'll show you the differences so you understand. And after I'm done, I'll figure out which one I want on the edge of my real garment. So if I use just a regular zigzag stitch, the stitch will go on left and right side of that. And this is, we've already determined, a little bit narrower than a 1/8 of an inch, which is about 2.5 millimeters wide. So if I go to a 3 millimeter wide width, it should go beyond the left side and the right side of the ribbon, which is not what I really want. But I want to show you both. My needle is striking in the left-hand side, so I turn the nut, and that moves it over, so I don't have to move my needle over or change the width of the stitch. Now it's going over the edge, and I need to actually put my glasses on. Yeah, you guys should meet at a show when we get shows. I'm going to be doing events, so at a hotel in our area, casino. Here we go. So it's just on the edge. It's very hard to control that way. But it's partly because I have the mic right in front of my line of sight. If you're sitting straight, centered with your needle, it's always easier to sew. It's actually very pretty. Isn't that beautiful? I don't know if you can see. Let me do a little more. Come on, Claire, get centered. There we go. It's super subtle. So let's see. Not a zigzag stitch, but a 3-step zigzag is what I'm thinking will be the best option for this, at a 3 millimeter width again. And we want to center the stitch with all of the stitches, or all the swings of the needle. And now we're utilizing this, or stitching this, to the top of the fabric. This would definitely be easier with my stick and rinse tape, which I haven't shown you yet. But you can see that I'm not guiding the ribbon. The ribbon is being controlled by the actual foot. See how pretty that is? Just really faint, nice little lightweight again, just like the stitch was lightweight. So here we have 2 different appearances to finishing the edge of something sheer like this. You can use this for scarves as well. So now I'm going to take and use some of our stick and rinse tape. And you might wonder how it's going to stitch on top of the fabric. So let me do that a little bit. So that's the edge. Always want your thread underneath the foot and to the left before you begin. I'm taking my thread tension down to 3, one number less than normal for this machine. Keeping my stitch length right now at a 1, and that reduces the chances of it puckering. So I'm going to go ahead and expand it now, go to 2 and show you the difference. So without any stabilizer. So it's starting to pucker the fabric. So going back down to a 1 on the stitch length. Ooh, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to take my stitch length all the way to 5. And now I'm going to hold on to this ribbon. Kind of try to hold it in a particular way that I can feel the tension on it and try to maintain that tension. And now the trim itself is an anchor for gathering to create ruffles. So with a zigzag stitch, it kind of stays more on the edge and it is smaller. And then using it with a 3-step zigzag stitch, it's a little bit wider, but it sits on top of the fabric. And then this is what it looks like on the bottom. Still nice. And I don't think you're at risk of having the fabric fray no matter which way you've chosen. So more uses for this beautiful new product that we have, the Quilt Highlights. And this is a rayon version of it. And I was thinking purple on this, and I'm sure there's a lot of you that go, yeah, I use purple. But I like the subtlety of the other. And then yellow would have made a nice complement. I think I'm leaning toward using the fishing line edge for mine. And I want to show you the stick and rinse tape now. And then we'll do a little couching or smocking in a bit. So we have this stretchy way of the fabric. You just take your tape and you can have it on the top or the bottom of the material. And if you were to draw a line on this first, then let's see if I can do that. You'd probably use a wash away or iron away or any other kind of pen, but I'm going to use a Sharpie because I'm going to show you something. Try not to waste very much of this beautiful fabric. So if I wanted to make it a curved edge instead of just a straight edge, I can draw that curve into the fabric. And then the tape is wider, so it can be laid on top of that. And we're going to go ahead and cut through it afterward. If you can't grab the end of the stabilizer, take Scotch tape or regular tape and lay it across at an angle, and then it will help you peel up the stabilizer off of the release liner. So the release liner is the shiny stuff, and the non-shiny stuff is the stabilizer, and it's sticky. So what it will do is stabilize this fabric. And this is what I created this product for, was to make scarves. because a lot of times when you work with fabrics like this, you're told to use what's called a stay stitch. Are you familiar with the term stay stitch? It's kind of what I did on the seam allowance. I used a straight stitch first, and then I was able to overcast second, and that straight stitch made the fabric stay in place and not expand. But the act of sewing a stay stitch on like a curved piece of fabric or any stretchy fabric, that stay stitch will actually cause the fabric to stretch. So this is kind of like a stay stitch, but it's not. It's a stick and rinse, water-soluble, completely water-soluble stabilizer. So we just take and lay it down on top of the, or on the back side of the material, whichever way you prefer. Because it lets you sew, you could even sandwich the fabric in between 2 layers of the stabilizer. And this is how you can make wedding veils in different shapes as well. So if you have you want to make a wedding veil and you want it to scallop down the back of the bride, well, you can do that. And then you can sew rhinestones on that, or ribbon, or beads, or I think this would be beautiful on the edge of wedding veils. What do you think? Now I'm going to take and cut the actual fabric. There we go. So I can go ahead and maintain that curve. And if you used an ink that isn't water soluble, well, just cut right next to it. And now you have this beautiful curvy shape. Let me get it over here, it's better. See how it has that nice scallopy look to it? And it doesn't stretch because the stabilizer won't allow it to. So now we can go ahead, and this will be a lot easier now. And I think I'm going to use the straight stitch. Oh, I'm going to use a narrow zigzag because that'll make it so that it will never fray. And this is a zigzag stitch that goes down and up and down and up and down and up at an angle. So the zigzag stitch goes like this, up at an angle, because up and back, up and back. See that? So instead of it going side to side, and that's what your pattern will look like on your machine. It'll look like a zigzag stitch that's going up and down like that. And what that does is it makes the stitches catch more often. So this is a stitch, that's a stitch. So if it were a straight stitch, oh, I'm like, what am I hearing? It's rain hitting my window. So what this does is it gives you the outward appearance after you use it. If you use this as a seam, this is a stitch they created for lingerie years and years and years ago. It's the first really true stretch stitch. This replaces any straight stitch. So if you ever have to sew up a pair of stretch garments, you know, any stretchy seam, use this stitch and it will look like a straight stitch on the right side of the fabric after you sew your seam. And then on the inside, it looks like that. So when the fabric stretches out, the zigzag stitch expands and allows you to stretch the fabric without ripping your fabric. If you've ever sewn a stretch garment with a straight stitch, well, you know the first time you wear it, you're going to hear the thread popping. And depending on how fine the stretch material, you can actually cause the fabric to tear as well. I'm repeating myself today too. Actually. Okay. So I'm using the same stitch, the 3-step zigzag. So it's basically the exact same thing I was doing before. And you're going to hear, maybe not because we have a really good microphone that lets you hear me instead of the machine, but the needle is going through the stabilizer. So I'm going to get that out of my way. Notice I don't have to guide the ribbon. And I'm using, it's at a 2, oh, I switched to that stitch. That's right. I am using a different stitch. I'm using the stretchy one I just showed you, which is beautiful, working absolutely perfect on this. Keep your eye focused right here so that you don't take the fabric and go too far this way or go in too far. Ignore the needle, ignore the ribbon. You just watch the front of the foot and just keep that raw edge right up to the side of the opening on the foot. Don't look at anything else. Don't get distracted. That needle goes, look at me, I'm moving all around. And the ribbon goes, ooh, no, look here. See how pretty I am? Watch the front of the foot. This is the only ribbon foot that gives you this much control to just put your hands on your fabric. And I'm going to take it past the tape here in a minute. Oh, I want to do a straight stitch now. Let's do a regular straight stitch. So you can see it expand. Now I'm off the tape. I'm now, it's like I was in a very controlled environment and now I'm not. Now I'm on the wild, regular single layer of super, yeah, I already went off the edge. And that's because the fabric is just so flexible. See the difference it makes? I'm not trying to make it look that bad, honestly. You saw me do it before and I did okay. Let me move the guide over. Try it again. Nope, it's just not going to go. Well, it worked a minute ago. Make sure you're centered with your machine so that you line up that guide right. Should have left it alone. It was fine. Nope, just can't. Oh, come on. So you can see the foot is allowing it to guide. As long as you are good at steering your fabric. The trim will be where it's supposed to, as long as you don't move it after you have it set. And that looks pretty as well, but I stretched the fabric a little bit by doing that. So much to choose from. See? So, what should I do, you guys? The fastest thing to do would be to use this candlelight and not use any stabilizer. In lieu of the stabilizer, or in place of it, I could use the liquid-based glue and brush it all along the edge of the material before sewing it. That's another option that I didn't speak of before. So what I'm going to do though, I really don't even have to do it because I just showed you different options and I can move to the couching or the smocking part right now. And do I want to smock the entire garment or do I just want to make it stretchy perhaps in the back and then not have it stretch at all in the front? And that's more flattering to your figure. So really, it's just how much do you need it to stretch? And that's how much you would smock up. That's why on this one, the smocking, this was actually one where you tie it in the front. And that's another option. So I had it tie. And then the back is the only area that it stretched, and it was only, that measures about 7 inches, but if you stretch it out, that's what its true size was when I created the smock. So it's about 12 inches of stretch, and 12 inches of stretch was enough to get it over my head. So that's really all I need to do is make sure I do 12 inches and choose where I want it to be smocked. So if you want to go all the way around, you can do that, but I think it'll take too long and I don't want that look on the front. And now it's just which leg do I want the swoopty thing to go. So I think I'm going to do it from here to here. So I'm going to mark this with clips. so that I don't go past it. Once I do one row, I shouldn't need that anymore. I always wish I could hear you guys talk. What is legal? Hi, Marcia. What am I missing? Okay, so I can't read everything. There's too much. You guys are super chatty today. Is it thundering down in the Phoenix area as well, Amy? They said July 10th, but I'm thinking it's a little early. Now I want the elastic to be on the inside. And in this case, we're going to use the Sequins and ribbon foot again and slide it right in to the hole. So this is the perfect foot for doing smocking style of elastic application. I'm going to take another sip here. So if you guys get raindrops on your cheek, it's people who passed away in heaven giving you a kiss on your cheek. So this is going to be on the back. And in this one, I used a much thicker weight of elastic, and it looks like a 40 weight thread on it. And I was about 5/8 of an inch away from the edge, and this is the selvage. If I didn't use the selvage, I could have used this on the edge, and so all of the top edge would have this pretty look to it, which I still can do. I think I like the gather being maybe a little more than that away from the edge. That way I do have the opportunity to sew something pretty on the edge of that. So I like to have a length of thread of yarn. Nope, that's not thread or yarn. Elastic sticking out from the back side, but not that much. Can have less than that. Kind of just keeps me alert to the fact that I'm sewing over something. Okay, so that is, now I look over here and I'm going to keep focused on that. And then I'm going to end, because I've removed the first clip. Okay, there's a stitch called the 3-step zigzag stitch or multiple zigzag stitch. And this is what this stitch looks like. It goes stitch, stitch, whoops, stitch, stitch, stitch. Wow, that dried out. Stitch, 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 stitch. So that's why they call it a 3-step zigzag. Also known as a tricot stitch. Also known as the serpentine stitch in the Bernina machine, where it goes stitch, 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 and it kind of moves in a snake shape. Any stitch that has multiple rows of stitching and it moves in a left and right direction, that you can then shorten the stitch length on and then get it to do something like that. That is what we're aiming for, a stitch that goes back and forth and mimics you sewing up and down, up and down, up and down. And what we're going to do is secure the end of the elastic at one end. So that's my 3-step zigzag stitch that I just changed to. I'm at a 3mm wide width, and I'm taking the length all the way down to the bottom of what my machine will allow. And a lot of machines won't let you sew a full 0 stitch length. And then this needle, I believe, is that 8 needle, or is it the 9? So this is something to be aware of, and not to go too fast, because we were just trying to stitch through the elastic. If it doesn't get, the needle doesn't go through that elastic, then it will not stay. And we want one end to be locked in place. You can always sew the rows and then afterward go up and down with a straight stitch across. So that is something I generally do as well. Now I'm changing to the regular zigzag stitch. And when I say that, I know some people don't know what I mean. So a regular zigzag is this one, where it just goes, it hops from one side to the other. And that is a zigzag motion. And you want a narrow width. You want it to be just slightly bigger than the width of that actual elastic, which is probably a 1.5mm wide elastic. I'm going to go 2.5mm. And we want to make it so that we don't have to pull the fabric through. We want it to steer, or it to pull the fabric through. So lengthening my stitch length a little more. Remember, lengthening your stitch length, and make sure it's on there to begin with. I need to change get my glasses on. Oh, I'm not even going over it. It'll be in the back. Okay, longer. 3mm stitch length. Centered more. Ugh, this would be easier with my tape again. I don't want to stitch through it. Only at the beginning. I was way over, no wonder. Okay, so this first row won't look that great. I'm going to go a little wider. So I'm taking it to 3mm. Actually, I'm going to rip that out because this is mine. I want it to be straight. You know what? I'm going to try something because this fabric is so sheer. I think it might work better if I use a Satinedge Foot bottom with the 1/8 inch guide for this Sequins ribbon foot. So this is the first time I've done this live. I do show you on the Creative Feet Techniques video that we offer at Creative Feet that if you take the Satinedge guide off of the foot, you can actually switch out the guide with the other foot's guide. Just keep letting it come off. Yep, I made them so that you can use this with this, but you cannot do any of the things the Satinedge Foot does without the wire. But you can see the post goes into this little slot. And now we have our Satinedge Foot bottom, which allows that round elastic to drop beneath it better. We need to get it inside the zigzag opening. And now that should behave better. And this isn't needed on regular fabric, but this is just probably the most challenging fabric I've used in a long time. There we go. And what we're trying for is to miss the elastic. Make sure your thread is always under the foot and to the left whenever you begin. If you have a non-rotary hook machine, you make sure you're holding your finger on top of the thread before you begin. And go back to that 3-step zigzag. So it's definitely caught it. Now it's regular zigzag. night and day. Another time you would switch out the Satinedge foot bottom for the sequins and ribbon foot bottom is when sewing a decorative stitch with ribbon. When the decorative stitch goes front and back or moves forward and back, it's much easier on the machine if the ribbon is free. I'm going to come all the way to the end or to this clip. And I'm going to back up. And I'm going to tie a knot. If you don't have a knot stitch, you can use a straight stitch, but make sure it's not hitting the elastic on this end. Use the machine's scissor option. Now it would have been wise to leave the elastic in the guide before cutting. But this is the easiest of all the things I've ever put in the foot because it's so firm. It does allow you just to slide it in without needing the thread. So you can put it on without having to take the guide off of the foot. To keep them equally spaced apart, I'm going to look at the side of the foot. So this guide has like a little drop down, and I can have it rest right against the elastic row that I already sewed. Super far from me, just so you know. I'm going to use a 3-step zigzag again and shorten that length down to lock that first stitch. Yeah, I'm right about here. I'm so far from it. Let me show you. See, I have the machine pushed like 1.5 feet away from me, and it's at an angle. And I'm going to switch it back in a moment, but this looks like a good angle for you to see how to line it up. So this is my focus right there. Make sure nothing is holding onto that elastic. Oopsie. Oh, I forgot I was doing the very first stitch. I still haven't secured it. So you want to hold the elastic when you're doing the securing stitch. Holding it in both top and bottom. I didn't narrow the width. It's too far away from it. And I honestly cannot see if I've stitched it. I think so. Okay, now back to the regular zigzag stitch. I didn't change anything, so it should be clearing the elastic. If not, there's a lot of stitching I'm going to have to undo. Isn't it nice to know that you can utilize both feet with the guides, but don't ever try the Satinedge guide on the sequin and ribbon foot. That does not work. And it may look like I'm pulling, but I'm not. I want the stitches to be the same, so I'm letting the machine do the steering. You can lift and come back if you don't have a knot stitch, as well as tying a knot using a straight stitch. So what I meant before is if you don't want to have to keep rethreading, you pull out your stitch and leave it in the foot. And now we're going to do our next row. And really it's up to you as to how many rows you do. Is that in good focus right there? It really is. I don't know if I can just adapt my body. There we go. See how nice and flat the stitching is? That's because this is a selvage and the fabric doesn't stretch this direction. Who's laughing? What are you laughing about? Did I do something funny? Okay, 0 stitch, or the shortest stitch length your machine will apply. Yes, there are many different dialects of Spanish. I am trying to learn. And my friend Rosa from Apliquick lives in Spain. She's like, you need to come stay with me and we will go have some fun. And I want to know how to speak before I get there. And it's definitely challenging. So zigzag stitch. And one more time. Oops. What's going on? Did I move it? All right, I got to be able to see. I shouldn't have changed anything. But this fabric, part of why it's so much more difficult than other sheer fabrics is that it's not sheer the same thickness. So you see how the fabric is thickest here and then it's next level. So it has a bunch of different levels of behavior. As the machine feeds, it goes into this drop down where there's really nothing at all, and then it comes up, and that's what causes this inconsistency. And the stick and rinse tape, well, it just makes it all one level for the sewing machine. Here we go. I think I'm just going to do 3 rows. Although 4 rows looks pretty, but no one's going to be seeing it because it's going to be on the back. Do not secure the elastic on this end. Just back up. Make sure you don't strike it on the other end and tie a knot. And then you grab the elastics and start stretching or sliding the fabric, and this is how you get that smock. And you'll be able to utilize all this elastic, or you'll still have all this elastic left over. You making people laugh, Amy? If you hit the like button and, you know, thumbs up and stuff, the YouTube algorithm thinks that you're having fun with me, not just with each other. Of course, I think the most important thing is when we end and you hit the thumbs up for the video in its entirety after we're done in the live chat. No one will ever be behind you. Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, you know, my hair is pretty long. The thing about it is that because it gathers up so tight, and I could have probably done even more. See what you mean? No one can tell if that stitch wasn't perfect. And it's really up to you as to how much I think I should do more, honestly. Because I really like it that gathered. Isn't that pretty? It's such a nice sheared look. So I gathered it more than I needed to. And if you do that, then, well, it's not going to go over your body. If you needed a 12-inch laying flat, you need a 12-inch laying flat. Might even pinch you if it's that tight. After you're done, and you know you like it, and you've tried it on, until you try it on, you have the opportunity to still make some more addition to that. But then once you have it, then you would lay it down and stitch across up and down a few times, and that will make it permanent. Let's see. What else was I going to show you if I had time? Oh, I was going to do a little wire edge. We're not at the 2-hour mark, but we're almost there. This would make a beautiful sleeve as well, you guys. Really nice. For you have to have the sleeve like sewn, and maybe it's a flousy, baggy kind of hem garment. It's a really nice way of bringing that sleeve to your wrist and allowing the drape of the, what do you call that kind of sleeve, you guys? It's kind of like a pirate shirt style. They're very pretty. Want me to do a little wire edge ribbon? Or show you a satin stitch with a 40 weight thread and remove the fishing line so you can see how pretty it is. What do you guys want? 15 minutes. You got me for 15 minutes. Is there anything that you want me to do? I'll do the wire edge ribbon. And the wire edge ribbon, or wire that I like to use, this is the quick snip, which is pretty cool because you can just take it in here and you just push down on this and it cuts the wire as well. And does it have its gauge on here? It doesn't say its gauge. Why doesn't it have a gauge? Oh, it's right there. 110 no, that's how many feet are on here, or meters are on here. Okay, so they give you uses for it, for wrapping wreaths, for strengthening stems on flowers in vases. And it's stainless steel. Decorative use only. What else would you use it for? I don't know. Got big drops hitting the window again. It's a lovely sound. They say we're going to have an El Nino. At least that's what I think I heard them say. If it's El Nino, we're going to get a lot of rain, and boy, do we need it, because last year we only had a couple days of real heavy rain that I can recall. In our summer month, anyway. Either or both. Just keep sewing, Amy, right? Just keep sewing, Claire. Well, let's just see how it reacts to this fabric, huh? Since we're dealing with really sheer. And in this case, we're going to use the Satinedge Foot again. One year I was filming and the thunder was right above me and it was so loud, you could hear it in the video. I'm trying to think of what video I was teaching. So you see, I don't know if you can see that. The wire is, see how the wire is like up and bouncing around? The dogs are getting nervous. Uh-oh. They know what's coming. So it bends as well. You can form it just like any other wire. And this is, you want a stainless steel one if you're going to leave it in the fabric and the fabric's going to get wet. This is definitely not the right thread. I'm going to change thread because I want you to see how pretty. If I were to leave that thread, you'd see the wire. So I'm going to use a 40 weight. And it's a good idea to match your needle and bobbin threads. But if you've been watching me long enough, you know that the Invisifil 100 weight thread is something I use quite often, especially in garment construction. It makes your top stitches look straighter and kind of drop into the nap of the fabric. So if you don't want your thread to show up too much, it's a good thread for that. I'm putting on a 40 weight, 100% polyester thread. And I primarily will use polyester thread on garments because it doesn't shrink and it doesn't bleed. It doesn't fade. That's the other thing that natural fibers do. And it doesn't break very easily. I still have a thin needle, so I'm not using my needle threader. And you saw the trick that I did with my 2 fingers. Just brought them together to make it go through. It's a 40 weight thread though. I may have to go up to the 7511 stretch needle. So it's not just the eye of the needle, it's can it fit in the groove of the needle? So this thread was able to go through the eye, but can it rest inside the groove going down the face of the needle? So usually we'll take my finger and hold it up on the top. And then you can kind of pull, and if you feel that thread rubbing against your finger, then it'll rub against the fabric and create a bigger hole. And it also will bring it too close to the hook and cause the fabric to actually, or the thread to shred, because the hook will damage the thread. And then the next time the arm up here that goes up and down, next time it pulls down and brings the thread through the eye of the needle, and then when it pulls back up again, it pulls the thread back out of the eye of the needle. Then the next time the thread goes through the needle eye, it's damaged and it shreds. And that's what the shredding is caused by, the hook beneath the fabric. So first I'm going to identify or determine whether or not I got the machine set right. So it is good on a 3.5 millimeter wide width, and I'm going to shorten my stitch length. If you wanted to sew a satin stitch on a fabric this thick and you were doing it for a long period of time, I would recommend using 2 threads through the eye of 1 needle, or to get one of our double eye needles. And then with every stitch that you sew, there is double the amount of thread laid on this fabric. And that means there's less or half the number of stitches used, and that makes the fabric last longer or not become damaged by too many strikes of the needle. And this is a pretty wide width that I have on here right now, 3.5 wide, which is making the fabric kind of bunch up. I want room for the wire, but I don't need it that wide. So I'm going to go to 2.5. See if we get less. Every time you change the width of the stitch, you must change. Oh, there's something pulling on the thread. What is causing that? So I have cords that are pushing against the spool on my thread dispenser, and that was increasing the bobbin tension to like 10, and that was partly why I wasn't liking what I was seeing. So I'm going to take it back to 3.5 and see if I like it now. Need to make sure that you follow the directions on how to set up the foot for satin stitch edging. This is satin stitch edging. In that book that I showed earlier, all of the settings are listed under the machine settings, and also in the little instruction booklet that comes with the foot. Longer on the stitch length. We want to know that I don't have to pull on the fabric for the stitch to look the way I want it to look on the outside. Another thing that would be made much easier with the stick and rinse tape. You can see all the uses that I would have for that. Now when we're making wire edge ribbon, we want to bend the ribbon or the wire so that we know it's going to stay in the stitch. If you try to come from this direction, the wire will stick away, or the wire will push out from the guide. So I kind of just curve it, at least just to get it started a little bit. And you want to know that there's room in there. I'm going to go a little wider, taking it to 4. There we go. Now it's going. In this case, we're going to leave the wire in the stitch. The wire and the Satinedge guide are both acting as a stabilizer for this fabric. Definitely the stick and rinse tape. I think I'm going to do a little with it so you can see the difference. This is more of a technique lesson today, huh? I'll just show you some with it on top too, so you can see that I'm telling you the truth when I say you can use it on both top and bottom. Got a little bit of a curve or buckle of the fabric right there. I'm gonna get past. There we go. Does it make sense what I said before about pushing toward the guide to make it bend and stay against the guide? We're almost to the tape. Here we go. Now we're on the tape. Remember, most feet can't even sew on the raw edge of any fabric. So the fact that we could sew on the raw edge and create that appearance is a plus with the Satinedge foot, making that possible. And then you add the tape, and now you get an absolutely perfect width, consistent length. The tape fills in the spaces between the fabric where it becomes thinner and then goes thicker. And I am just taking the wire and pushing it toward the foot. I'm really not even guiding the fabric, as the foot does such a good job on steering for the most part anyway, so you don't have to sit there and pull from behind the foot, and I don't have to really guide that much from the front. My eye is focused always on the front side of the side of that guide, just making sure the fabric's touching it. If it's touching it, then I don't have to do anything or worry about anything going wrong. Now I'm coming off the ribbon again, or off the stick and rinse tape. And you'll notice that the width of the stitch changes considerably, and now we get the fabric starting to kind of tunnel in, and that's simply because of how thin it is. And then you have the ability to tear this. Yay! The rain is coming down hard right now. The dogs aren't happy. I was going to go downtown. I guess not. There was music in our town. Here we go. So you can just peel that up. And it tears, but also, if any were to remain, it would wash away. And I could have gotten shorter on the stitch length than that. So you have a wire edge ribbon, or wire edge. You got fishing line edge, which is obviously better for this type of fabric. And then we have our quilt highlights edge, and the narrower width that keeps it right on the edge of the material. And then on the edge, with this is done without our stick and rinse tape. And where's the piece I did with it? Well, I can't find it. Do you guys see it? Huh. Here it is. Nope, that's not it either. Can you guys point to it? I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't even gotten up for a break. It's so slippery though and slinky. It's definitely not there. Is it? Nope. Which one should I do? Which one should I use on the edge of my cover? Where is the wire going through at? So on the Satinedge Foot, it has a wire. And so the wire, the fishing edge wire, or the wire. Okay, let's not call this a wire. Let's call this the guide pin, which is what I call it in the instructions. And it kind of sits right next to that. That's what takes place. And this wire, or the guide on the foot, is off the edge of the fabric, and then this is sitting right on the edge of the fabric. And as you're bending and pushing it toward the foot, it keeps it, this guide wire back here, the guide pin, keeps it from moving away from the needle, so you don't have to worry about breaking your needle. This is why we have a 208-page workbook and a 2-hour instructional video that are designed to work together. My cover is not on my book. I don't know why. So inside of here are just what you kind of saw today was me showing you techniques rather than completing the garment. And this is how the book is written. The machine settings are listed, and then you can write any notes for any particular machine that you have. So if you have 4 or 5 different machines, since our feet fit all sewing machines, you can just draw little lines and say my Janome, my Singer, my Bernina, my Viking, Husqvarna, and then put the setting in there. Once you've done it, and you know you've done it, following the step-by-step and illustrated instructions with over 500 drawings that I did to make it so that you can see what it is I'm showing rather than try to figure out what you're seeing in a photograph. Then you put your sample in the book. And these are out of order because this is a show book. Customers handled it so much the pages are all falling out. So this book has a video to support it. And you're able to buy them separate. And you can buy the video on a DVD as well as a USB, as well as go into the school and the school is, I'm going to write I'll type the school address inside of the chat right now, but it's also in the description of the video under the See More link. Once the live is over, then you're not able to type in the chat anymore, but then the comments open up below the video because now it's just like any other video. It's up and it's no longer live, and if you type anything, well, I don't see you because I won't be on live anymore. And you see like the little description, there's these words that say see more, and you click on those 2 words, and then it expands, opens up to all the different links, including my school, Create with Clare Rowley. And inside of the school, there is a basic Creative Feet techniques video in there, and what it is it gives you access to the video online. So you don't have a USB and you don't have a DVD. No chance of them becoming damaged because they are in the cloud, and that is how you access it. And then that's a group. It's actually a group inside of the school as well. It's the same price as buying the DVD or the USB version, which is a flash drive that you put in, and you can take that video and stick it in any of your devices and watch it on anything from a computer to your smartphone. Should you understand the cloud, and I think more of you are understanding that lately. So you would just take and put it somewhere and you access it. So if you have a Google Drive account or a Apple account, iApple or me or whatever, that's where you would stick the file. And then you can access it from anything, anywhere, and you don't have to worry about it becoming or going away if your computer hard drive fails or anything like that. And then you can ask questions inside of the group, and I will respond to your questions. So you have a long-term relationship with me through that particular group. If you are interested in joining that group and you already have the video, we're going to be doing something to make it so you can join that, so that you can ask questions and then know that the Creative Feed extension is opening up this summer. And I think we just started summer. Boy, did we kick it off in Arizona with a whole week and a half of over 100-degree weather. And it was only in the 70s a couple days ago. It was just delightful, and much, much appreciated to anyone who lives in Arizona. iCloud, thank you, Amy. All right, so I'm going to type the school address in here. And let's see. Yeah, that's how I do it. So this is the school. When you come to the school, it says Create with Clare Rowley, and it asks if you want to join. And all the members are going to be upset because I didn't say I was going live today before. So if you send me a message, you can share. Did you share that I was live, Amy? Oh, you're asking. Okay. Sorry I didn't give you a heads up before, Amy. So in here, if you want to join the Creative Feed Techniques group, it's a group. So you go into the groups. Come on, open. And then we have a Creative Feed Techniques Basic. So this is the original Creative Feed video, and it is a premium course, so you pay for it just like you buy the video. And then inside of here, it is broken down. There's a table of contents, and there's the 2 hours of covering 61 different techniques that are designed to support the book that I've been showing you. So this is the inside of it. And it takes you to a private area on YouTube where you can view the book by chapter. I mean the video by chapter. This is the Fabrically Speaking live show, which you're watching right now, and this is where I should have posted that I was going live today, but I did not. And the topics on the side of this is where you'll find free patterns. So you can see here we got patterns, you click on it, and then I have any patterns that I promise within a video are listed in here and are like PDF files. So like this is the round Dresden plate that you saw me doodling on, and this is in a variety of different sizes. Should you want to quilt like this, and that's what I use to do these in a project that was just a couple weeks back. So I hope that you've enjoyed today's Fabrically Speaking live, and that you will join me again next Thursday at 2 o'clock. If you are one of the VIPs, this Saturday is the VIP, whatever you want Claire to sew Saturday. So get your ideas up. Be ready to challenge me, or I'll do whatever I want on Saturday with you. And that is done in Zoom. So if you're already familiar with using Zoom, you know that you'll be able to talk. I'll be able to hear you, and it is so much fun. I really enjoy having you guys all in there. That is the VIP group inside of the school that you just saw. And I said I put the school in here, so let me do that. It was getting really loud. I'm so excited, it's raining. Both dogs are by my feet right now, though. Chase is whimpering. He does not like it at all. And Tinkerbell's been sneezing. I think she's sniffed something she's allergic to. So here's the school link. That'll take you right to the school. Anything else? I'm glad you liked the lesson, Amy. I think since it's raining, I'll just stay here and finish my cover. I was actually going to use my jacuzzi tonight, but I guess I won't. I'll do it tomorrow. Hi, Sandy Flynn. You came in a little late, but you know the videos are all live immediately following, and you guys can watch from the beginning should you want to. All right, the words are so far away, but I got my cell phone here where I can see better. So I think I did all the edges I promised. If your fabric is stretchy and you want a lettuce edge, well, that's another technique that I have inside the book and video. And you'll be so excited to see how easy it is to do it with our Satinedge Foot. Let's see. I think I'm done. Can you guys hear the rain hitting the air conditioner? It'll be interesting to see if I can hear the rain. I think I can. Yeah, I can. Oh, well, we're coming into the monsoon season. That means if it's raining on Thursday, and it usually comes in around 3 o'clock our time every day, cools off and cleans the air, and it's so nice. If you have never witnessed a monsoon storm in the dark in Arizona and watched it roll across the horizon, if you're new to Arizona and you don't know just how magnificent it is, it is. And everyone turns the lights off, and it's just amazing. It's astounding, the power of it. And every year people get hit by lightning, so be careful. And if you guys can give me a suggestion of what you want me to teach next week, that would be great. I'm always open to hearing what you want me to do. Otherwise, I do whatever I want to do on Thursday. And this is what I wanted to do today. So let's see. I think I'm done. Am I done? All right. If you are new to my channel, thank you for hanging out with me today, or if you watched the recorded version, thank you for putting up with 2 hours of me going blah, 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 blah. And if you are new to Creative Feet, because we have so many new people, welcome to the Creative Feet family. And you can always reach me by going to info@creativefeet.com and asking questions that way, or using our contact form at creativefeet.com. The most active or quickest response from me is through the school, though, because I get texts. I know right away if you have a question, and you can search my name at the top of the school, search Clare, and I think I'm generally showing up as on all the time, but maybe not. And whenever you see my face in a little circle, you just click on it and you can say hello, and you can type me a private message in there, just like on Facebook and other sources of social media. And we also have a Twitter and everything at creativefeet.com. If you go down the bottom, you'll see the links to our social media sites. Oh, you're so sweet, Iris. I love you guys so much. It's so fun to show you some of the fun things you can do with your sewing machine. Stepping out of your I only sew with a straight stitch pants and getting into your hula dancing skirt and having fun with all of the different trims and needles and challenging fabrics. And I hope that you've got found this beneficial. I've been a little tongue-tied today. And thanks for putting up with that. So if you've yet to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I hope you'll do so today. And thanks for watching. Bye, everybody. See you next week.